Bases dropped on a new edition of Soccer Down Here. It's a Tuesday Thoughts edition of the show, so it can go kind of anywhere you want it to, and there's lots of different things going on in the soccer world this morning. Join the conversation with us in a few different ways. You can email us, soccerdownhere@gmail.com. You can hang out with us on Twitter @SoccerDownHere. You can also tweet at OSG Nelson or at Longshoe. And you can join us on the Twitch pitch, twitch.tv/SoccerDownHere. John thought it was basketball down here wearing the Hickory Hoosiers movie T-shirt.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, I also have my Al Nassr jersey just off to the side.
Those are two completely and utterly different things that should have nothing to do with one another. I'm just saying.
I like the movie and I like the jersey, so I picked them both up.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I couldn't resist the Al Nassr, and that was the Al Nassr third one that had the emblazoned stallion who was bucking up. I thought that one I couldn't resist. That one had to be a part of the collection.
Should have been a unicorn. All right, we got lots of different things to jump into this morning. Kefsey says ball is ball, so that's fine. We can roll with that. All right, a couple different things to jump into this morning. And it's going to be kind of a scattered day, it seems like, with where the news is coming from, what's going on. You got Champions League this afternoon starting at 12:55. Or no, sorry, 1:55. I'm sorry, my time zones are all out of whack now. 1:55 for the early games, 4 o'clock for the later games. I think next week it gets back to normal. Yeah, I can't keep up.
Because I think we fall back, was it Saturday night, Sunday morning?
Is it Saturday night? Yeah, I just wait and see what my phone tells me what time it is at this point. None of it makes any sense. So you've got Champions League today. You've got Barcelona and a vote about no confidence that just continues to get silly. You've got Barcelona trying to provide evidence to the Spanish Federation about how VAR is cheating them. You've got positive tests with Atlanta United. We'll get into that here in just a second. You've got Marcelo Gallardo with River Plate going into isolation because he's been in close contact with someone who has tested positive. Funny how that works. I wish everybody else paid attention to that. All kinds of different things going on today. And anything else you guys want to jump into, seriously, throw it into the mix. We'll get into it. It will be one of those days. We do have the run-up coming up later this evening, 7 o'clock. We'll preview Atlanta and Orlando tomorrow. Get into detail on that match. It's a critical match at this point. You know, you've lost your margin for error because of the loss to D.C. on the weekend. If you want to get into the playoffs, you have to go to Orlando and win. Now, it is a place where you've never lost, but a draw isn't good enough right now either. You need to go and get a win. And it's not going to be easy against a good Orlando team. Now, they have not been as good here lately with one win in their last 6. But this is an Orlando team that has been a problem in the Eastern Conference this year. So that's going to be tough. It gets tougher because there's a distraction, and we'll find out more probably in, between now and the match. Came out yesterday. Atlanta United decided to cancel in-person activity at the Children's Healthcare of Atlanta training ground for today, which would have been more of a walkthrough, a lighter training session. That was done out of an abundance of caution. One player received a confirmed COVID-19 positive result. And to kind of walk you through the way this process works again, so players are tested before and after games. They're tested the day before games. They're tested the day after games. So he was tested on Sunday. All right. Now, got a positive. It was confirmed in a follow-up test on Monday. That's the process here. So additional standard testing would be today. That is the normal day for it. So everyone else is testing. No one else has exhibited symptoms or anything. I believe the player is asymptomatic as well. So no negative or no positive tests on Sunday outside of one player. That was followed up on. That was confirmed positive. Additional standard testing conducted today. No training session today. No one else is exhibiting symptoms. So the individual who tested positive will be in self-isolation, monitored by club medical staff under a strict and detailed protocol, asymptomatic, working with local health officials to conduct contact tracing for those who came in close contact with the individual. Right now, the match is still on for Wednesday. That is the procedure. Now, I think if there are more positives, which, again, everybody tested negative on Sunday, then you're having a different conversation, and we've seen this play out around the league. But that came out yesterday. There's not been any updates yet. Players, I would assume, are undergoing testing probably right around now, players and staff.
Yeah, and so obviously we'll just keep an eye on it, and when we know more, then we'll let everybody else know more. Obviously, something we're going to keep an eye on for today and the run-up coming up at 7. If we have an update by then, obviously we'll let folks know.
Yeah, Jason Dick said, UGG, no Atlanta United training today due to COVID test, just what we needed before a must-win. Yeah, it's not ideal, obviously. This would be a light day. It would be a day that you would probably be working on set pieces, which Orlando's good at. You can do some things via video conferencing, and I would assume that's what the plan would be, to try to bridge that gap, show some videos of set piece good, set piece bad. Work on some different things just in terms of providing visuals. Look, it's a challenge for a coaching staff, but that's what 2020's been. I think at times we kind of take it for granted that, coaches just go out there and run a couple drills. They look in the book. They say, we're going to do this one. Yeah, that's fine. Let's just go. We'll do that. That's fine. No, you have to think about what your team needs. And then when you have stuff like this come up, it's like, my team still needs to talk about or work on X, Y, and Z, and I can't get them on the field. What can I do to try to bridge that gap? And that's the challenge in 2020. That's the issue that teams in all sports and leagues are dealing with. So we'll keep you posted as more comes out about this. But right now it is one player who has tested positive. No one else has tested positive. Additional follow-up. Well, additional regular testing. It's not follow-up. Additional regular testing is today. And we will see what happens, and we'll go from there. But right now everything is moving forward as scheduled, except for no training today.
Yep. And it's, you mentioned that this Orlando match, it's a big one. And this is one of those tests that you have across the board that is now added with the positive that's on the board. And so under normal circumstances, you're sitting there and you're preparing for a must-win game, and now you have this added to it for that added dimension. But like I said, we'll keep everybody posted. When we know more, we'll let everybody else know more.
Shiva in the Twitch pitch, we don't know that Franco is out again. That was actually not mentioned at all in the media availability yesterday. The only players that are listed as out right now are Joseph Martinez and Edgar Castillo. No one else was listed as out. So we don't know that Franco is out again. That's a guess. Nothing's been said about it, so there's really no way to know that. And we don't know if you can't field the best 11. So I know it's a frustrating time. I know it's easy to jump to things, but that's not a definite at this point. Franco was reportedly in contention to play on the weekend, so he's not far off. It is not, I think, out of the norm to think that he might be able to play tomorrow. So let's wait and see. Sorry, Castillo. Yeah, my fault. That actually was confusion during the media availability yesterday. That was brought up, and I don't know how that got mixed up. But yes, Castillo is back. My fault. So it's just Joseph. Castillo's fine. Sorry to freak everybody out. I remembered a conversation from the media availability yesterday, and that was mixed up. Okay. Castillo's good. No worries there. We don't know if Escobar's good. That's where we're at right now. And we don't know who tested positive, so there's no way to know that. We'll just have to wait and see. What other questions we got on the Twitters?
Well, on the Twitters this morning, since this is Diego Maradona week here at SDH.
Okay.
Tafka says, is it just me, or did Maradona have a really weird gait when he runs? Is he just short-legged, or is his stride just very abbreviated?
He is short, and he is short-legged. Yeah, I didn't notice it being that weird. He's explosive because he's short, and, there was one little thing that, like, when I think of the way he ran, there was something in the great goal against England that I always remember, and I tried to do when I was a kid, and I couldn't do it. I don't know how he did it. When he got out to full speed after breaking through the first couple defenders at midfield, And he like takes this huge long step, and it's almost like a horse the way he like gets forward, and his left leg like goes full stretch out in front. It's almost like a hop. It completely threw defender off. I guess it just came naturally. I don't think you can actually work through that. I tried. I couldn't as a kid. It didn't make any sense. But it was such a weird step that it threw the defense off. And that whole run, he's throwing the defense off. So I don't think it was that weird. I think it's just he's small. And I think the biggest thing he had going for him in that realm was his low center of gravity. You know, he was, you know, a small, stout guy, and he could ride off a challenge. He could bounce off a challenge. You know, he didn't go over very easily because he had he had great balance, which is such a critical thing that gets overlooked at times. But that low center of gravity really helped him out.
And then the other one in early this morning is from Chris Ashley. He says, it's hashtag Optimism Tuesday of Championship Week. Up the triumph in all caps, hashtag birds aren't real.
Birds aren't real? That's a weird statement there, Chris Ashley. I need more detail on this.
With the owls, I guess.
Well, I know it's an owl, but that's a bold statement to say birds aren't real. That doesn't make any sense at all. Please explain, Chris Ashley, because I'm starting to wonder if you're okay.
He's excited. He's got a championship game coming on.
But now he's saying birds aren't real, and I'm confused because I think they're real. I think I've seen them before.
Well, yeah, because then if they're not real, then what are those things that are flying above us that, want to drop things on our cars occasionally when we're not looking, or just flying south for the winter? What are those things if they're not real?
Jason Nick says they are government surveillance devices. And they come in all kinds of different shapes and sizes and make different noises. And
from Nick's perspective, I understand where he's coming from, because then you can sit there and it's like, okay, I think I know what a government surveillance device looks like, and then you have this other one that's a different size. No, they do it to throw you off. I see where Nick's is coming from here. Okay, look, I knew this show was going to go off the rails. I didn't know it was going to go that far off the rails, but okay. A few different questions about Christian Pavón. This news came out yesterday from TIC. So let me try to clarify a few things, because there's been some confusion here. The Galaxy have the loan for Pavón right now. They have the ability to trigger the purchase option. Nobody else can come in and negotiate at this point, not at least officially. They have reportedly, according to TIC, told Boca Juniors they are not going to pay the purchase option, which is $20 million, which would be the largest transfer in MLS history. They have said no, they're not going to do that. Now, they have said they'd like to negotiate, which is typical. There's nothing weird about this. So nobody else can come in and scoop them just yet. There's a lot of talk about Pavón to Atlanta. It's total speculation, first off. Boca has made it clear they would like to have Pavón play in the Copa Libertadores coming up. They're going into the knockout round. They're also about to start playing the League Cup, essentially, the Copa Liga de Profesional de Football in Argentina, which is it's a league cup, but it's almost like a mini league tournament here to finish out the year and get back on a normal schedule early next year. It's not like a knockout tournament. It's 6 games in the first round, and then you'll play 5 more. So you're going to play 11 games for sure. So it's like a miniature season. They want Pavón for Copa Libertadores and for that. That would take him to the end of the year. That makes sense. If they can't get the deal done with the Galaxy, I don't think they get a deal done with anybody until the January window. That way they have him through the Libertadores final if they get there. Could they make a deal after that? It's possible. They could decide not to make a deal at all after that because he comes back and he plays well. You got to remember, the thing about Pavón was when he went, so he went to the World Cup in 2018. His form fell off a cliff after that. Summer of 2019, when he went on loan to the LA Galaxy, he was not playing at Boca. And he goes on loan. They talked about his confidence being shot. Goes to play for the Galaxy. Plays well. He's played well. He's been a good player for the LA Galaxy. He's had some really big moments. The Galaxy had been a bad team, but he's had some big moments. So now they're saying he comes back as a different player. You know, does that mean they want to keep him for the long haul?
There's questions about Boca's finances and how long they can go without fans in the stands. They've got some big projects in terms of renovations of their stadium they'd like to do. They might not be able to really afford it if there is a good offer on the table. I don't think $20 million is a good offer. If we're talking in the 10 to 15, we're having a different conversation, especially with the new designated player situation with the U22 initiative. Now, he would not fall under that, but you would be able to sign players to that, which would open up designated player slots in general for players like this, players who are a little bit older, players who would be established coming in. Would he be a potential fit? Yeah, he would. He's a very talented player. There's no way around that. You don't have a designated player spot right now, and I've already seen it. Like, move Barco and buy Pavone. That's possible. I mean, that would be one way to fit that. That would mean you'd have to move Barco, and that's not necessarily going to be easy in this window because this upcoming transfer window is so hard to call. There's no precedent for it. There's no precedent for where teams will be financially after. I mean, most everybody, by the time we get to that window in January, will have played somewhere, around 20 games behind closed doors with no revenue coming in outside of TV and sponsorship. How many clubs worldwide are going to be in a position to pay for those kinds of players? It's different when we're talking about an Mbappe, when we're talking about chasing Sancho. We're talking about guys that are in the huge money deals. The same clubs that were going to buy them anyway are still interested in them. They've got that kind of money. Are the smaller clubs who would be interested in paying somewhere between 10, 15, 20, 25, $30 million, are they going to take chances with that money right now? I don't know. I think the numbers of clubs that would take chances are smaller now, which is just kind of to be expected with the way the financials are. But could you still find a deal? Absolutely, you could still find a deal. And you're probably going to have to get creative on pricing. Maybe on the terms of the deal as well, and how long it's paid out over, things like that. But it's so unknown right now. I think you're going to have to be ready to be flexible in that window if you want to go get a designated player, because you don't know when a deal is going to get done on a Barco if the right deal comes. It's going to be difficult. It's just such a weird time financially that I don't know. Would Pavone be a good signing? Yes, I think you would, for the right price. $20 million is not the right price. Probably less than 15 would be the right price. And would Boca sell for that? I don't know. Would they wait and see if maybe they could sell him to a club in Europe? He'd be kind of in the same boat, probably in a more difficult boat than Barco because he's a little bit older. He wouldn't be as much of a question mark because of his age and potential, but people wouldn't want to pay as much either because he's an older player and he's had ups and downs in his career. It's tough. It's going to be a weird window, and like all the different ways, if you've played your football managers or your FIFAs and you followed these windows over and over and over again, you can kind of throw that out of what a normal window is going to look like, in my opinion. I think it's going to be really strange. This past one, 25% less spending out of the European clubs. The upcoming one, I don't know. I don't think it's going to be more spending. I don't see any way how it is. The January window can be weird anyway. This one will be the weirdest. And I don't know how many clubs are really going to be in the market for projects, for players who need time to grow, players who have a lot of potential but might not be able to help you immediately, or players who just aren't a sure thing. I don't know what the market's going to be. It's going to be fascinating to watch.
Yeah, and for me, you mentioned 25% less. I mean, for me, I'm going to be looking at the art of the negotiation, I guess is the best way that I can phrase it. When the parent club sits there and says, okay, well, we have player X and we value him here, then is it, how unrealistic is that first number? What's the margins like in the negotiation? Is the number so high knowing that you're going to have to come down on it? What's the negotiation from the other side for the team that's interested? Is it a lower than normal, in quotation marks, number? What is that margin like? When do you come into that middle number? For me, the whole spacing in the numbers, I think for me is going to be interesting. But you mentioned 25% as the percentage that was in the previous window, is it another 25? Are teams looking at the sure things? They're not going to take those flyers in the past. They want to sit there and they want to look at that locked-in player that they really think can make the impact, instead of sitting there saying, yeah, we have discretionary money. We can sit there and say, okay, we think this guy. I think you're going to see more of we think that we know this guy can do this, instead of we think this person can grow into that.
I still think the big deals will get done for established players. I think the small deals will get done for established players. I think the medium-sized deals are going to be the ones that get squeezed. Yeah. Burns says, I don't think Barco will be sold in the winter. They won't be able to fetch what they want. He said that everybody in Europe is on austerity budgets, salary cuts. Nobody's going to pay $30 million, and I don't see that. I don't know how much. And also, I don't know how hard he would be pushing for a move. Like, you get to a point where you're trying to balance wanting to make as much money as you can, wanting to have a happy player or make a player happy. And there are limits to all of those things. You know, it's a range. And it's not going to be easy to keep everything within the same range on this one, I don't think. But I don't know. I mean, I just don't think it's going to be easy to find. It's possible. It's definitely possible. But Atlanta's not the only club in this situation, by the way. You know, any club in this hemisphere who had plans, because they all have plans, of when you want to move a player on. It's like, all right, we kind of have this idea. We want to sell them when they've got 2 years left on their deal. We want to sell them around here. We want to go and upgrade here. We want to go and spend again here. All that's thrown into flux right now. You know, Brazilian clubs that are, you know, based on selling players to make their budgets might not be able to. Dutch clubs who make a killing in the transfer market. What's the transfer market going to be like for some of those players? There's a lot of questions about it. So, I mean, it's not like it's just Atlanta trying to figure this out and like, oh, I don't know what to do here. It's clubs around the world trying to figure this out, because the money that used to be spent on these kinds of players is drying up at the moment. So how do you get it done? Yeah. We'll have to see. We'll have to see where this goes. Clayton Poss asks, would you loan Barco with an obligation to buy to allow teams to hope the recoup can happen? Yeah, an obligation to buy, yes, because that might be the way you get it done over a period of time for the buying team. Is they can stretch things out a little bit in the way that they pay it. There would have to be that obligation. I don't think they would do it with an option, because then you can get stuck with too many designated players if they decide not to pick up the option. That's not the way you want to go. I think for MLS clubs in this situation, there has to be that obligation. And they have to pay whatever it is on the salary, and I believe in the MLS rules, it is the whole salary. They would have to pay that while he is on loan, so he's off your books as a designated player. That's going to be the key in whatever way you work that kind of situation, is you want to open up the designated player spot. You don't want to have a DP loaned out and not be able to use the slot. That doesn't help you at all. So an obligation to buy Clayton, yeah, that makes sense. I think you can also probably do the same thing with a purchase where the payments are spread over a period of time, which is common anyway. That's honestly pretty common. We talked about it a little bit on Soccer Over There last night. Boca's books are a little interesting at the moment, because they, on their books, put money in that they're not going to receive yet. Deals that were done and will be paid out, but are being spread over a period of time, which is typical for the way a transfer fee is paid. So do you maybe get a little more creative with that to try to navigate it? You can. You also got to make sure you're dealing with a club that's not going anywhere. And, yeah, that becomes a very viable issue at this point. You got to make sure it's a club that can pay it over a period of 5 years, and isn't going to have, you know, severe problems and get to a point where they have to default on it. That happens. We've seen that with some clubs in Argentina. Cecilio Dominguez, who's with Austin and now on loan in Paraguay. Independiente still owed money to Club America on that deal because they couldn't pay it on the original deal to bring him to Independiente. So they had to sell him to be able to pay that deal off, and you just keep trying to keep the books balanced as best you can. that's going to become more of an issue right now because clubs are going to be reluctant and or unable to pay upfront bigger transfer fees.
When it comes to teams, and you mentioned the Dominguez deal, I mean, how gun-shy do you think clubs will be just in general so you don't have another Dominguez situation? I know that comes as a part of due diligence.
No, that's been going on for a long time. Let's not act like that's new. Independiente has had problems financially. Rivers had problems financially. Clubs in Brazil have had, that's common. That's why FIFA has a process for this. This isn't new. That was pre-pandemic. This is stuff that clubs make deals and try to make their money balance. Because, look, I mean, this is the thing I don't think people seem to understand. There are not a lot of clubs in the world that are making big money, period, before the pandemic.
Right.
A lot of clubs in this hemisphere kind of live hand to mouth. So Independiente saying, yes, we want Cecilio Dominguez. Yes, Club America, we will buy him from you. We'll pay it out over a certain period of time. And you miss some payments. That happens. Welcome to the world. And it's not going to go away. I think, if anything, clubs need to be a little more careful right now of making sure that they're dealing with people who can make their payments on time. Right. It's just the reality. It's nothing new. We've seen it with... I've seen it at least 5-6 times in the last few months, and these are deals that predated the pandemic. So it's going to continue to happen. You just might need to be even more careful right now about who you're dealing with. Because, like, I'm not going to take a credit deal from an Independiente right now, and no offense to our friend Gustavo, but they've had problems paying on transfers before this. They've had problems paying salaries lately. That's not somebody I'm going to accept a 5-year deal on. I'm going to need money up front. That's how it goes. That's the game.
It's not the wimpy philosophy when it comes to player salaries. I'd gladly pay you Tuesday for a player today.
I mean, that's what's been going on. I don't think you can be too. I think you need to be careful with that right now, depending on who you're dealing with.
And that was kind of what I didn't know if obviously you're going to be more careful, I would think, than before because of the current environment.
Well, but and two, I don't want to get anybody confused here. Atlanta United's not going to be selling Ezequiel Barco to a club in this kind of situation. That's different. That's more on the other end of it. They're talking some smaller deals on that. He's not going to go back to Argentina. He would go potentially to a club in Brazil, which would be probably somewhat disappointing for him. Although there are some big clubs in Brazil that they've always been mentioned as clubs that would be interested in him. They were interested in Pity Martinez as well. There's some clubs in Brazil that will spend like European clubs and try to act like European clubs. I think it's more likely he goes to Europe. I think that's where he would want to go. And, I mean, Burns says it might be better to reduce the valuation to $15 million. I have no idea what the valuation is right now. The $30 million number, I think, was after the U20 World Cup last year. It's different now. I don't think that's the valuation. I don't know where it is. I think you're trying to get the best deal you can. The balance is going to be, do you have somebody that you want to go sign as a designated player right now? That you're ready to go, you've done your due diligence, you like what you see, you've had preliminary conversations, everything's in place. If you have that, you're going to be more willing to do a lesser deal for Barco to get the deal done. Also, is Barco really pushing for that move right now? And he probably will be, because he is getting at a point where I'm sure he wants to go and play in Europe. That was his dream. Okay. How hard is he pushing? Would he be a valuable player if you can't get a deal done and he stayed here? Or would you be worried that, no, he's still looking across the ocean, that's where he wants to go? You've got a lot to balance. You're going to want to get as much as you can. But if you have somebody ready to come in immediately, you're probably going to be more willing to get creative with those numbers. If you don't, then okay, you can play a little bit more hardball and you can try to make more. There's a lot of things. I think it's easy to sit outside of that room, outside of that building, and say, sell, or, no, don't listen to anything. There's so much you're balancing when it comes to these kinds of deals, that we don't know all the information. But I think those are the things that factor into it. So we will see. Lots of talk about, what were the plans, and none of this was really verbalized. So like Bart says, I think the OG plan was to sell Barco in this window after the 2020 Olympics, having 2 U tournaments to show out. Unfortunately, 2020, possibly. That would make sense. I don't know if that was. It definitely wasn't ever officially said, which you're not going to. Could it have been the plan? Sure. It could have been the plan to do. It would have been hard to do in the summer window, actually, because the Olympics would have been the very end of the window. That would have been August,
July,
right?
August. Yeah.
August, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I think you would have had a problem there. Maybe not. I think this upcoming window would have been the one that would have made sense. I said it back in January. When he wasn't sold in that window, I thought he would be here for the full 2020 season. Now, the 2020 season took a whole different turn. I said I didn't think it would make sense to sell him in the summer. Again, this was when we were looking at an Olympics and all that. I said I thought it would make the most sense to sell in January. That would be the ideal. Once we got into the pandemic situation, if an offer had materialized in the summer, I would have listened. It sounds like it didn't. So now, I think you're still in that boat just because you don't know. If offers materialize, you're going to listen at this point because I don't know what the offers are going to look like. I don't know what the offers are going to look like for almost anybody in MLS right now. The numbers are just going to be very different. You've got to almost block out previous valuations and previous expectations on what numbers could be because it's all different at the moment. It's all different, and you've got to be able to adjust to the new reality of where the financials are worldwide.
And you're looking at 3 different elements. You're looking at zero-based budgeting, making sure that at the very least, one of these 3 options is whatever the player transfer is outbound, that you're bringing in a player that can match that, or you can have some kind of acceptable loss. And obviously you're looking at your numerologists and your finances where that's concerned. And then if there's another club that wants to come in and then you make some money to get you some allocation money in return off of a sale or a transfer fee, then those 3 options for me are what you're looking at on the table when it comes to any transaction these days. And almost you're looking at it. So, okay, what's acceptable in this current economic environment?
A couple of different questions about what you would look at if that spot opens up and how that spot could open up. Uncle No Pocket says, or they could want to move him to give the new coaching hire a DP slot to better mold his roster. Sure. I don't think you want to run the risk of not being able to make that signing, so you probably want to go to your lists and almost take your list to the new coaching hire and say, these are the people that we think we can get right now. What position do you think this team needs right now? And you have the conversation that way. The new coach, I know this is the idea. It's not the reality. The new coach is not going to bring a list of players and say, sign these 5. It's just not the way it works. It's not. But I think you'll work collaboratively to solve that problem. What position do you go with? And some of that's going to depend on the new manager. Some of that's going to depend on the U22 initiative, too. So I don't think there's an easy answer to say, if you sold Barco tomorrow, you would go and sign a number 6, or you would go and sign a left winger, or you would go and sign a number 10. I think those are 3 options. I think the 6 is probably the lowest because you can get value in a cheaper price tag at the 6, but still get impact. You have more options to do that. A top 10 or a top left winger, you're going to be paying more, so that might be where the DP slot goes. Yeah. The U22 initiative is what also throws it out of whack because it's almost flipped. You can get, for that U22 initiative, you might get a young player who has factored into a team a little bit more and has more experience and can step in and hit the ground running as an attacking player for a U22, for a young player, as opposed to a veteran at the 6 that I think you're probably leaning to, unless there's a young player there that you really like. That makes it a little trickier to navigate. It's going to be down to your lists and your players. And you're probably going to be looking at those side by side because you're going to look at, okay, we have 2 U22 initiative spots, assuming Eric Lopez takes one. So you've got 2 spots there. If you have a designated player spot, you've got one of those. All right, so that's 3 spots that are somewhat off the books, reduced salary cap hit. You can make some noise with these 3 signings. All right, if you're looking at a 6, a 10, and a left winger, okay, what's the best values? Is it better to put the DP slot on the 6 and go young in the other 2? Is it better to put the DP slot as a left winger or a 10 and put the 6 as a U22? What is it? And it's going to depend on who you've talked to, who you've scouted, who you've identified, who you like, who you can get for a good price. All of those things factor into it. So I don't think it is a move one, bring this, done. I think it is a puzzle. And I think you're juggling all those things to make the best fit. And the new manager will factor into that as well. Because they're going to have things, I would hope, because I would hope that's why they get the job, they would come in and say, I've watched the last season of games with this team. I feel like we need to upgrade at this position, this position, this position. I like this player. We can make this player do this. You have an idea. So you're going to take that. You're going to take your scouting. You're going to take your relationships, and you're going to put it all together, and you're going to figure out the best way to spend, and you're going to figure out the best moves to make. That's not the fun way to say, sell Barco and go sign player X right now. Yes, that's what we do. I know that's the accepted way of doing this sort of conversation. It's not reality, though. You've got to, especially with that U22 portion, come in and say, look, we're going to have 3 spots if you move Barco in this window. If you don't, you got 2 spots. Still room to make things happen. But you're going to have 2 to 3 spots that you can make a lot of noise with in the signings. How do you use them? That's what it's going to come down to. And it's not rigid. It's not rigid in saying, I want this position, I want somebody with 25 games of first division experience in one of these leagues. No, it's what's available, what's a good price, how do we project this player. It's a process. It's not just it's not going onto a list on a video game, there's a lot to do with it. And that's why you have a big scouting department. That's why you put in the work now to where you can move faster.
Now, when you look at the U22 initiative, I'm looking forward to seeing how each team in their own context applies the U22 initiative to their rosters and to their mindsets and things like that. Are you going to bring in players that you're looking to develop? Are you looking for players that you want to have instantly be a part of your 18s and your 11s, that kind of thing? So when it comes to the U22, I'm looking forward to seeing each individual test case here with MLS franchises and see how they bring in players, where they go to bring in players, and how they want to have them as a part of their systems.
Did you call accountants a numerologist?
Yes. And capologists, numerologists, whatever you want to call them.
I thought a numerologist was like Miss Cleo or something.
Oh, wait. Oh, yeah. Well, numerologists are the ones that sit there and they look at the numbers of a certain thing, and they sit there and they say, okay, well, if you have these numbers associated with something, then it means good luck or something like that. Yeah, I think I'm a capologist instead of numerologist.
Yeah, I was wondering. I was going to let that one.
Maybe Miss Cleo can be a part of some franchise someplace and help them out.
Yeah, I was going to let that one roll, but Mezzano had a question about it. I was a little confused as well. So,
bruh. Exactly.
Just saying. DK says, I think the club knows the way they expect to play and are working on building the optimal roster to fulfill that goal, including hiring a coach with the same tactical mindset. If they match, then the club signings should fit the coach's plan. DK, you win a gold star because that's how it works. It's not the coach coming in and saying, we're going to play a 4-4-2 diamond and we're going to play this way and we're going to sit and play on the counter. No. And this is where the conversation about Atlanta United having no identity is incorrect to me. They do have an identity. It is not a rigid identity in what the Red Bulls do or what some other clubs do. It's not rigid in a formation like Sporting Kansas City is rigid around a 4-3-3. It's not rigid. It needs a manager to come in and play in the form that they want. And I think that's broad. I think it is you want a team that will attack. You want a team that will control matches. You want a team that will play fast. I think, honestly, if you want to get really simple with what that identity is, I think that's it. I think it's that simple. You want control, you want speed, and you want to attack. You can do that in a variety of ways, and managers can figure out the best way for them based off the players. You also have to be able to adapt, as we saw with Tata Martino. Tata was too open at times in 2017. He also got the first goal a bunch in 2017, and that helped. That's how important that is. 2018, he tried to get better defensively. It never quite clicked, so going into the postseason, he had to get very defensive. And they had one of the best ever defensive performances in a postseason in MLS history. Tied for the best one, what they did in 2018. You've got to be able to defend. I went back yesterday to look at winners of MLS and how they did defensively and how they did defensively in the postseason. Last year's Seattle team gave up, 1.44 goals per game during the regular season. That was the highest total since 1997, DC United. The early days of MLS, defense was totally optional. The numbers are kind of crazy. But you had not had a total that high in goals per game since 97. You go back to the Atlanta team in 2018, it was 1.29, and that was on the higher side. But you look at the postseason, only 2 teams in MLS history had a higher postseason goals per game than regular season. And both of those were kind of negligible. The weirdest one was 2003 San Jose, where they gave up 2 goals a game in the postseason, but they scored a ton of goals. You had one that went up like 0.12 goals per game. Pretty even. Most of your goals per game in the postseason were less than a goal a game of championship teams. So you want to be attacking. You want to be fast. You want to be fluid. You want to control games. You want to control games even more in the postseason because you can't give up goals in the postseason or you go home, as we saw in the Eastern Conference Final last year. Yep. You've got to be able to defend when the time calls for it. So you have to have a manager who's going to fit that. The manager's going to have some ability, as we've seen with Tata, who played a 4-2-3-1 a lot, played a 3-5-2 a lot, kind of bounced back and forth, tried a little bit of 4-4-2 at the end of 2017, didn't work. You saw with Frank, you saw 3-4-3 early on that was shaped a little differently than it was this year. You saw 3-5-2 last season, although at times it looked more like a 3-4-2-1. You saw 4-3-3 last season. You even saw some 4-4-2 at times last season. It's not about the shape. It's not about those things. You want players who can move in different roles. But you want to control, you want to attack, and you want to play fast and fluid. I think those are your 3 things. So you're going to hire a manager who fits that. So you've been recruiting players that fit that. So you're not having a radical change. I think maybe there's an expectation that it's a radical change with a new manager. I don't think that's the intention at all. You do have an identity. You do have those things in place. And you need the manager to mold it and bring them in. That's it.
Yeah, Jason Heinley on Twitter says Atlanta United equals attacking through control and speed.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. You want. I think the fluidity would be the only other element to add to that kind of statement. You want to be fluid, which means you want to be able to attack in different ways. You want to be able to control games in different ways, and that's something that Stephen Glass and Tony Annan have both said in the last year and a half. Controlling games is not only possession. You want to be able to control games and make the other team react to you. You don't want to be a reactionary team. That's a lesser team to me. I don't think there's many championship teams that are reactionary. There's some. I mean, Greece in 2004 in the Euros, they were a very reactionary defensive team. And they stand out because that's not common. You want to be able to control a game, whether you're controlling a match like the top Spanish teams did when they won the World Cup, when they won the Euros. You want to be able to control a game like teams that are very open, like Manchester City's teams that won the Premier League. You want to be able to control games with the ability to counter press like Liverpool has lately. You want to be able to combine all of that in a perfect world like Bayern has lately. I think you need to have all of those elements. But control at times gets tied to possession, and it's not. It's control. It's dictating the way the game plays out. Lesser teams have to play off of the other team. You don't want to be there. You want to be able to dictate it. I think in a perfect world, that fluidity comes into play more and more. You want to be able to adapt. And I think that was something that was a benefit of Frank's time here, and that you saw him, especially at the end of last season, he adapted his tactics, his lineups, based off the opposition. You look at the lineups against New England on the last day of the regular season and in the postseason. Then the lineup changed against Philadelphia. Pity Martinez was out. He came back in. You changed the shape. He made changes to the shape in matches. We didn't see much of that under Tata Martino. You saw that under Frank. You want to be able to do more of that because that's what Jurgen Klopp is doing more and more of. That's what Pep Guardiola has done for a long time. That's what the top managers are doing more of. It's not reacting to the opposition in the game and having to play a different way. It's looking at what they do and saying, this is what we do. They have this weakness, and we're going to exploit that by playing with wingbacks in this match. Or we're going to exploit that by getting one more midfielder into the middle because we can play through there. That's their weakest spot. You have to be able to do that because if you can only play in a 4-3-3, and that's all you got, you're going to run up against some teams that are going to be a problem for you. You have to be able to be fluid. You want to play fast, you want to attack, and you want to control matches. That's the identity.
This is going to sound like a very simplistic question, but why as a team would you want to be reactive instead of proactive in your approach? Is it just because you look at the other team, you sit there and say, okay, we can't match up with that, no matter who that is, week in and week out? The Greece example is what I'll present to the floor. Why have that as a philosophy as opposed to being proactive, asserting your will, doing your bidding, basically, instead of what Greece is doing? Why have a situation like that? Is it just straight up talent and lack of firepower to match?
You know the answer. I mean, why would, if you are West Brom coming into the Premier League, getting promoted, and you're going to play Chelsea, why would you park the bus?
So you've got a chance to get out of there with a point.
That's it. You don't have the talent to compete on the same level. So you'll see smaller clubs a lot of times do that. What you're starting to see more and more of, which is good to see, you're starting to see smaller clubs say, you know what? Yes, we don't have as much talent, but we believe in the way we play, and we're not going to change because we're playing a heavyweight. We might lose 5-3. We might lose 5-2.
I guess that's what I was getting at, basically.
But most won't do that because what is the general reaction when that happens? Fire them. I mean, who was it last year? Southampton. Hasenhüttl, who got blown out.
Yep.
And
9-0.
You have to give the club credit because the club said, yeah, we don't like this. This is not good. But we expect that it will be better, and we believe in the way that this team plays, and we believe in our manager. And what are they doing right now?
They're being tight. They're right there as a part of the discussion.
They're playing well.
Yeah.
So that doesn't happen all that often. You've got to, and this is the balancing act, you've got to have the backing of your bosses to be able to play in a more risky way. Now, if you have the talent, it's not as risky, right? But if you don't have the talent and you're going to play in that risky way, you've got to have the backing. Marcelo Bielsa could go into Leeds and say, we're going to play this way. Yeah, we're going to take our lumps occasionally because we're still figuring it out. We're learning. It's very open. It's very risky. But this is how we're going to play because this will get the best soccer for us. This will get the best results for us. They didn't deviate from that after a very sad conclusion to year one. They didn't deviate. They doubled down on it. That was something that Bielsa himself talked about during his time as a young manager at Newell's. He had some success. Then it started to fall apart. And he nearly had a breakdown. And he kind of shut himself off from everybody for a couple of days. And he just kept digging into it and looking at it and trying to figure out what was going wrong. And he said, we need to go even more into what we're doing. We need to play like this even more. We can't get scared. We can't back off. We need to be more aggressive. We need to press more. We need to be, more difficult to play against. And they got it back, and they went on another run, and he had another great run with Newell's. It's tough because when the results start to go against you, or you feel like you're not as good, or you feel like your talent's not there, or you have some injuries, you start to get conservative. And are there times to do it? Yes. Are there times in matches especially? Yes. And that's a completely different conversation for me. I think sometimes those things get lumped together. A manager who comes into a match, gets a 3-1 lead, and their striker's done, he's tired, and you have to make changes. That manager who gets a little more defensive at that point, that's trying to win the result. That's fine. When you come into the match in a defensive posture, that's a different conversation than reacting to the match itself and getting more defensive inside of the match. Like what Jaap Stam is doing with Cincinnati, they're not playing. They're sitting back, and they're only trying to get out when they can and try to get a set piece or try to get out on a counter. That's it. It's a simple way to play. It's a way that you can drill and drill and drill. And it's a way that makes it harder for the opponent because you're going to get numbers behind the ball. There's not going to be space to operate in. And you're going to try to take advantage of the opponent getting frustrated. It's not a style of play I enjoy. It's not a style of play a lot of people enjoy. But can it be effective? Yeah, it can. But Atlanta's not going to be that team. Atlanta will play on the front foot, as they say. They will control the match. They will play fast. They will be fluid. And they will attack. That's the way that Atlanta wants to play. That's the DNA. So you're going to hire a manager who fits that. You're going to sign players who fit that. Marcelino Moreno, for example, fits that. That's why the talk about you had to get a manager before you signed Marcelino Moreno. No, you didn't. Because the manager is going to fit that just like Marcelino Moreno fits that. You have the ability to get him. You get him. We haven't seen the best of him. It's I would have hoped that he could hit the ground running more, but he hadn't played since March.
Yeah.
It takes time. He's worked hard. He hasn't been sharp. You can tell he's rusty. You can emulate intensity in training all you want. It doesn't always come through because you're playing against your teammates. You get into a game, the intensity is different. The intensity ramps up. And now you're dealing with weirdness of, like, it's intense because it's a game, but it's not as intense because there's not a lot of people in the stands or there's no people in the stands yelling. It's really weird. And you're moving to a different country during a pandemic and all these different things that can make it difficult. And there was something Felipe Cardenas tweeted yesterday that I think, we've talked about Fernando Meza a good bit. His family hasn't been able to join him in Atlanta yet. That's hard.
Yeah.
These are things like these guys are human beings. I know we forget that at times because, they don't seem like human beings. They seem like superheroes to a lot of people, and I get it. But they have emotions too, and things are hard for them. Emerson Hyndman told all of us that, he tested positive for coronavirus earlier in the year. Don't know how that affected him, mentally or physically. Like, there's so much of that makes it difficult. But you've got to come back to who the club is as a whole. And you've got to come back to, we believe in the signings that we've made. We believe in the way we want to play. And we're going to believe in the hires that we make as well on the coaching staff going forward. And we're going to keep going forward. Because if you don't have that, you're constantly changing your approach. And that's very difficult to do. If you have consistency in the identity, you can move on from people and you can make moves, and they're so much easier, and everything gets incorporated so much faster.
Jason Heinley's back in. He says, as much as I wanted Frank DeBoer to succeed, I don't think he really got the speed part down. Attacking happened, but slowly.
Yeah, it didn't. Well, actually, I take that back because it did late in the season last year. It sounds like, and this is speculation based off the things that have been said, it sounds like the disconnect was how much attention towards defense you needed to have to get that right, because you have to be a good defensive team, and how much that took away from playing more freely. The freer you play, the faster you play. How much did that detract from it? Could you have found a better balance? And I think you needed to. And that's down on the players and the manager as well, because it sounds like the players didn't necessarily accept working as much on the defensive side, which is a necessity. I mean, you've got to work on the defensive side. Like, you can't not work on it. And Frank was no different than Tata Martino in that. That's, I think, something that has been kind of skewed incorrectly. Tata Martino, at the end of 2017, when they had training sessions after they were knocked out of the postseason, I think they got like a week or 2 weeks, and most teams don't really do much with that. Tata started working on playing three in the back because he wanted to see if that could make them more secure defensively. And you saw it early on. It didn't really work in 2018. You went back to it. It worked, but it didn't work good enough defensively because you gave up some bad goals at bad times. And Tata, going into the postseason, said, you know what, we're not going to risk this. We're not going to be risky in the postseason. This is a different animal altogether, so we're going to be defense first. And it worked for them. But if he had come back, I think one of his focuses going into 2019 would have been to be better defensively. Frank said that early on, and it was correct, but he didn't get the balance in the way he worked on it. So the players felt constrained. They didn't accept it. It just didn't fit. It didn't feel right. Now, I think late in the season it did, and people have said that that's no credit to Frank. That's all because the players took over the team, which is nonsense. That's because he realized at that point, we've got to make changes. We've got to be more open because that's how these players are comfortable. Let's do it. And we're going to have to accept the risks that come with that. Now, they did well with it. But you go back to the Eastern Conference Final, and you gave up 2 goals that were great goals, but you didn't close down on it well enough. You weren't good enough defensively in those moments, and you got knocked out. That happens. So you come into 2020, what are you trying to do? You're trying to get better defensively. That's been the number one thing every offseason. And then you have Joseph get hurt. And look, a lot of teams would have got more defensive at that point. Frank didn't. I don't know if he really figured out what he wanted to do with Joseph's injury, and I think that was one of the major problems. But a lot of teams, you lose your striker, what happens? You start to become a sit back and defend and bunker team because you don't have goals. They haven't done that. They have tried to play. Has it cost them some results? Yeah, it has. But they have tried to stay true to who they are. And it goes back. They do have an identity. If they had went to a defend, bunker, Cincinnati mentality, which Frank DeBoer could have done, Stephen Glass could have done. Hey, I don't have my striker. I don't have a lot of goals in this team right now. I got to defend. I got to put 5 in a line and play a 5-4-1. That would have been a move that probably could have gotten some results that you haven't gotten. It wouldn't have been true to what Atlanta United is. So that's the reality of it. All that stuff is hard. All that stuff is moving on a regular daily basis, and all of it adjusts. But that's my thoughts on it anyway.
You want me to thank somebody as we head into hour number 2?
Yeah, why don't we do that? And we've got a bunch on the Twitch pitch to get into, and we got some Champions League to talk about as well. Tell us about Steve Apolinsky.
I could do that. Apolinsky and Associates LLC, proud supporters of everything SDH and the Soccer Down Here Network. Wrongful death and serious injury attorneys. If this is a conversation you need to have, you can have it with Steve and the associates that make up Apolinsky and Associates LLC.
That would make sense.
Yes, it was. A couple different ways that you can do it. You can give Steve a shout via email directly, steve@aa-legal.com. You can also give him a call, 404-377-9191, and you can get a free consultation that way. Or you can go to the website, aa-legal.com, and when you use large device or small, however you do it, hit enter, hit return, hit the arrow key. Guess what happens? A pop-up window pops up because that's what pop-up windows do. They pop up. And it could be Steve. We don't know. We don't have the answer to this yet. But it could be Steve who is actually there answering the questions 24/7, 365 and a quarter for you at the end of that pop-up window. So it could be Steve catching up with you in a bunch of different ways. Over 30 years of experience, over $40 million of judgments for their clients in Georgia and Alabama. Recognized as Legal Elite by Georgia Trend Magazine for being one of the top 100 firms in this here state of Georgia. If a wrongful death or serious injury matter is what you need to have discussed, there's one place to do it. Apolinski & Associates, LLC, and the website is aa-legal. Did it too quick.com.
Well, you can't break character in that, though. You gotta handle that. You gotta be fluid, John.
Oh, I'm very fluid. It's just but it would have been one of those Summeralian pauses before I had gotten to the other part. You would have sat there. You would have waited incessantly for 3 or 4 more bars, wondering when Nelson's going to sit there and do the .com part of this whole thing.
Yeah, but you got to sell it, man. You got to sell it. Otherwise, you kick it into the stands and instead of getting a shot on goal.
I've seen those.
Yeah, it happens from time to time.
I just pull a Richie Larea and sit there and put my foot in the turf and fall down.
Well, that's an approach. It can work sometimes.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to try to catch up on the Twitch pitch real quick. We've got a lot of other things to talk about in hour number 2 as well. Some questions about the U22 spots. So Mazzano says, do you see other MLS clubs utilize them as aggressively as Atlanta? And Johannes asks and says, looking forward to seeing how many of them are Americans versus internationals. I think there could be some teams that utilize those spots to keep a Reggie Cannon, Brendan Aronson type of player for an extra year or two, then maybe they would go. I 100% think that both of those will factor in. I think a lot of teams will use it aggressively. But the way they use it aggressively might not be to go to Argentina or to Ecuador or to Paraguay and to sign a player for $5 million. It might be to keep, Reggie Cannon, to be able to pay him a little bit more and keep him for an extra year. Say, okay, we know you want to go to Europe. We want you to go to Europe. We want to make that money. We think if you stay one more year, you'll make more money when you go. We'll make more money in the transfer fee, and we're willing to pay you more to do that right now. I think that's going to come up. I think that's a really good point. And I think a Dallas, a Red Bulls, teams that are developing a lot of talent right now are going to be using that to keep people. Jordan Morris was an example of this too. Remember, he had interest from Werder Bremen, and he decided to stay in Seattle. And they kind of rewrote the way you could spend homegrown money for him to be able to pay him more than a typical homegrown. This gives you another angle to that. If you are Dallas and you have Chris Richards coming through your academy and he's got interest to go to Bayern Munich, you say, well, okay, first off, you're not going to play over there for maybe a year and a half. You can play here for that year, and we'll pay you, $1.5 million, whatever the limit is you can pay up to. We'll pay you that. We'll sign you to a homegrown deal that you've never seen before because we can fit you under this new initiative now. That's going to be fascinating to see. I think a lot of teams will use it aggressively, but in very different ways. Who is the team who's going to go out and build the connections in Africa, for example? To bring African players over in this kind of fit where you can maybe take some chances that you didn't before. South America obviously is an easy one. There will be teams that have deep connections in Europe who will take advantage of this. Does a New York City go get 3 young players from Manchester City's academy and bring them over under this kind of role? They should.
Yeah.
Does Red Bull New York, do they say, okay, we're having problems producing players for Leipzig and for Salzburg, but they've got some young players that aren't getting time. Can we bring an 18-year-old over here and play for a year and improve their standing because they're going to be playing in the first division? They should. Or bring a player up from Bragantino in Brazil. You can do this a lot of different ways. I think you'll see more aggressiveness in general from teams, but it won't be one way. It won't just be going to Argentina and doing it. I've said it. If Mataflo is listening, I'm sure he would back this up. I really feel like Ecuador is a market that MLS can do a lot of business with because there are really good young players playing in the first division. If you could form a partnership with Independiente del Valle because they commit to this and they bring these players through where you get a first look, you get players in early, this is another way you can stretch your scouting and your recruitment to use this U22 initiative. So I think you'll see a lot of teams aggressive with it, just not in the same way. That's what's going to be interesting.
Yeah, and when you mentioned the African continent, for me, that was when a big light bulb went off, because you're not seeing right now here in North America those relationships. But I mean, that to me,
yeah, you're not seeing enough of it. I mean, you're only seeing it honestly with not a huge number of European clubs either. You're seeing some who have connections. A lot of times it is through an agent as opposed through a club or a federation. I'd like to see some of those partnerships get stronger. MLS has tried with some different things, and it hasn't come off as well as it should. I think the Right to Dream Academy is one that has.
Yeah.
I think they need to figure out more ways to do that, and maybe this initiative is a step in that direction.
So when you look at domestic and trying to hang on to domestic players, Dallas, Atlanta, Philadelphia, Red Bulls could be one of those combinations with the players they're bringing up domestically, plus all of the associations in Europe. Who else would be one that it's been building teams through their domestics that you could see?
I mean, LAFC will get there. They're not there yet. Seattle hasn't had a lot of that. I could see Toronto potentially. Vancouver was getting close for a while, but it feels like they haven't produced as much as you would have thought outside of Alphonso Davies. Chicago will put more emphasis on it going forward. I don't know how long it takes for this to happen. Orlando will put more emphasis on it going forward. I don't know how long it takes. For your new teams coming in, I mean, like Miami, Beckham has been very interested on the academy side. They're going to be aggressive there, and you can be aggressive in two phases. You know, if you have this entree to signing players to your first team, that's appealing to get a kid to come join your academy. And some of those kids coming from overseas to come join your academy, that will happen. You know, if you're in Austin, you could be pretty aggressive with this. If you're Charlotte, you could plan ahead for this. I mean, Charlotte's going to have academy teams. They already have them this fall. They're playing Atlanta United next weekend. That's good. So if you can start to develop players, hey, it gives you another area to make your roster even better. It does. Okay. What else we got here? Lots of different conversation in the Twitch pitch. Anything else on Twitter along these lines before we bounce around?
Nope, we are caught up.
Okay. Ricky Ricardo has joined in. Fantasy starts this week. It starts tonight. We will get into that here too.
Yeah.
John has not done his roster, as we can tell. John, you're doing really good in fantasy. Why are you slipping, man? What's up?
I'm one of those deadline guys. I sit there and it's like, oh yeah, we got to do it. It's that deadline pressure is what gets me wrapped up in trying to stay at the top of the table.
Okay, fair enough. All right, let's bounce around worldwide just a little bit. We'll run through the Champions League schedule for today in a minute. Racing Louisville in the NWSL has added their first two players, and they're two really good players, too. Savannah McCaskill and Yuki Nagasato go to Louisville from Chicago. There's all kinds of weird international slots and allocation monies and things in the NWSL now that are sometimes a little hard to follow. Louisville got some international slots. They got a first-round pick. Chicago got protection in the expansion draft. Okay, it feels like a lot Chicago's giving up. But, okay, we'll see how that works. The other big news on the NWSL front that is a great step in the right direction is adding a homegrown player rule. It's funny, for all the talk about MLS's crazy convoluted rules, NWSL is actually doing a lot of the same things now as they grow, because some of it makes sense in a cap league. Mm-hmm. So you've got a homegrown player rule coming in. It looks like in 2022, maybe for the next season. Maybe there's some like trialing of it in 21. You have to develop players if you're the NWSL too. The college game helps you a lot more on the women's side than it does on the men's side. That's a fact, because you're not developing your own players. But, as we've talked about, the college game is based on a little bit different style of play. It is more physical. It is more direct. It is more, kick and chase is a little harsh. but it is not as much about the smaller, skilled player that is becoming a more focal point in the women's game. The U.S. has been able to dominate because of size, speed, strength, intelligence, tactically as well, but physically. It hasn't been technical. Now you're starting to see the Netherlands. Now you're starting to see Spain, England developing some wonderful technical players. You're going to develop more technical players in your own academy, not through the college ranks. It's just not the way the college game is set up. So to have a homegrown setup that could take effect ahead of the 2022 draft, great step in the right direction from the NWSL. I really like that. So things, as we've wondered what the NWSL would look like going into 21 and 22 and beyond, feels like things are coming together for the future in a good way.
Yeah, and going back to the Racing Louisville transaction with all of the national team players that were and high profile players that were on the Chicago roster, if you thought that was what you needed to do to make sure that you kept all of them, then that's what you're going to do. And but no, Racing Louisville coming out of the blocks, getting those two players, that's a good start for Racing Louisville. Looking forward to that. And then the expansion draft's on the 12th of November.
Yeah.
So looking forward to seeing the other pieces that can come in to be a part of what they're looking for there in Louisville, Lynn family.
There's no way I would have traded Yugi Nagasato. No way. I wouldn't have traded McCaskill either. Man, everybody was talking about McCaskill and needing to be faster. And I could care less how fast she is. I love the way she sees the game. No, speed's not her thing, but talent is.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a great pickup for Louisville. Those are two players I would love to build around. So good move by Racing Louisville. We'll get into a possible 23 for the November U.S. men's national team matches. Soccer America had a look at what a possible squad could look at. We'll jump into that here in a minute. Champions League today. I'm sure you've got the juice boxes / Halloween candy to work with.
Why, yes, I do.
Couple of Champions League things to keep an eye on. So Eden Hazard returning for Real Madrid. He's been out for 81 days, played against City on August 7th. Might get some minutes tonight. They're hoping he'll help the attack. Borussia Mönchengladbach is hosting Real Madrid. The game was originally going to be in front of over 10,000 people. The Mönchengladbach sold 10,800 tickets. That will not be happening. The health authorities in Dusseldorf have ruled that initial plan is not possible due to the rate of spread within that area of Germany. So Mönchengladbach's going to have to give money back to the people who bought these tickets. You're going to have to refund them. That is not where they want to be at all, but that's where we're at with COVID-19. So instead of 10,800, it will be no fans for Real Madrid and Mönchengladbach. Manchester City will be without Sergio Aguero against Marseille today. Could be out for a month. Muscle problem after recovering from a knee operation. He only played the first half against West Ham. They do have Laporte, who traveled. They do have De Bruyne in contention to start after coming off the bench on Saturday. They will not have Fernandinho, Benjamin Mendy, and Nathan Ake. They are not making the trip. So, what are the numbers for today's matches if you want to run through those?
I'll run through those. I'll start with the biggest number on the board in more than one way. The 155 kicks, Lokomotiv Moscow and Bayern Munich. Tell you what do you think Lokomotiv Moscow is on the plus side? And it has increased since yesterday.
I know, and I'm trying to remember what it was, and I think it was really high yesterday. Let's say plus 2,000.
Close. You're good.
Really?
Plus 1950.
I didn't get up to 2,000. It was like 1,600 yesterday, wasn't it?
Yeah. Bayern is a minus 769 in your composite, courtesy of our friends at Odds Portal, and your draw is a plus 910.
Give me a draw. Give me a draw. Some dodgy borscht. That's what causes it. Give me a draw.
Speaking of dodgy borscht,
I like dodgy borscht. I like borscht anyway. I don't like dodgy borscht.
I don't.
You don't like beets, do you?
No, I don't.
No surprise there, John.
Nope. Our group leader, Shakhtar Donetsk, got Inter at 155. And I figured, since we're talking about Shakhtar, figure as a public service once again.
Your team, yes.
My team. Shakhtar is a plus 444 at home, and enter a minus 167 on the road. Your draw is a plus 350.
Shakhtar. There's talk that Inter's lineup could be pretty heavily rotated, so I like the idea of Shakhtar in that one.
Well, and remember, Shakhtar had, 10 players that were not a part of the Real Madrid match, and including Junior Marias, one of their top scorers. So interesting to see what their lineup looks like. But I'm with you. I'm going to take the 2-pack of the sweet tarts that you reminded me of yesterday. I'm going to put a couple of 2-packs on Shakhtar for the win.
Okay.
Bunch of 4 o'clockers. We have 6 at 4 o'clock. Atalanta is a minus 103 at home. Ajax is visiting. They are a plus 247. Your draw is a plus 320. I think Atalanta just hit a wall. I've got to go with Ajax.
Yeah, I've got to go with Ajax, too. I got to stick with Ajax.
Atletico Madrid, a minus 133 at home against Salzburg. Salzburg is a plus 400 on the road to win, and your draw is a plus 285.
What are you thinking?
Draw.
Yeah, I'm leaning that way, too.
Borussia Mönchengladbach, Real Madrid. Real Madrid, a minus 104. Borussia Mönchengladbach, a plus 270, and your draw, a plus 300.
I'm going to take Gladbach. I think Madrid will be... yes, I'm going to take Gladbach to win. I think Real Madrid will be exhausted from the El Clasico nonsense.
Yeah.
And they weren't really all that good before they played a bad team in Barcelona. So I don't know if it gets better. Eden Hazard, if he can give you any kind of attacking impetus, then maybe we're having a different conversation. You do have Sergio Ramos back, and as AS wrote, he is their life insurance policy. He will help, but I think they have a letdown. That's what's so hard about this schedule right now is for Real Madrid. I mean, you have the loss to Cadiz in league play. You lose to Shakhtar, shockingly. You then play Barcelona in an emotional game, and you win it. And now you got to go play Mönchengladbach?
Yeah.
Like, you're going to have a letdown somewhere. You're going to see some weird results like that from teams that just can't get up for every one of these games.
Yeah.
I'm thinking it is Real Madrid here. And Ricky Ricardo says that's a mistake. That's fine, Ricky. We'll see what happens.
Yeah.
I'm putting like Bit-O-Honeys on it. I'm not putting anything good.
I was going to say like Necco wafers.
Yeah, I'm not putting anything good on that. It's like the Bit-O-Honeys.
Yeah,
garbage.
That's a good one. I'd go with the Necco wafers on Mönchengladbach too. Porto and Olympiacos. Porto at home, a minus 116. Olympiacos, a plus 355. Your draw is a plus 260.
I don't have enough of a feeling about Olympiacos to go anywhere near that.
Nope. Liverpool and Midtjylland. Liverpool, a minus 475 at home. Midtjylland, north of plus 1200. And your draw is a plus 660. It's going to be ugly 1-0, 2-0 at the 80th minute or something like that. Liverpool, it's just
2-0 Liverpool, and it will not be a fun watch.
Nope. Yeah. So maybe you should watch Marseille and Manchester City.
Mm-hmm.
Marseille, a plus 773 at home.
Oof. Okay.
Manchester City, a minus 263, and I'm looking at all those absences at the back.
Yeah. What's the draw?
Plus 420.
I'm going to go draw.
Yeah. So, let's see. The 155s, if there's a way that I can watch Shakhtar, have everything done that I've got to do after the show is over and be done by 155. See, that reminds me. We've got to have Poppy Miller on the show.
She's pretty busy these days.
But when she's not busy, we need to have her on the show.
I mean, she's doing Champions League Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Europa League on Thursdays, and then probably decompressing for 4 days.
Well, and then in that decompression, we need to have her on the show.
Well, try. Reach out. She might not be answering calls. I wouldn't blame her right now. These are long, crazy days.
With as busy as she is right now, hanging out with DMB and Ian Joy. And let's see, who else is a part of that crew?
Like 27 different people.
I mean, I have to give CBS a lot of credit for how they've gone all in on this, and they're taking it absolutely seriously and love the wall-to-wallness of
It's
it.
been good because they've balanced having fun with it with treating it seriously. That was my issue with Turner's presentation, is it felt like they didn't take it seriously enough.
Yeah.
It felt too silly at times. This feels serious, but there's still fun in it. And the fun it feels genuine. It doesn't feel forced. I mean, when you get Jamie Carragher cracking on everybody, you get Micah Richards and you just get the banter,
Yeah.
but serious commentary as well. You need that. You need both. And I feel like that's where Turner didn't catch it. It felt too light.
Yeah.
And these games are serious to people. They're meaningful, and they need to be presented in that way.
Yeah, when you see Alex Scott and Guillaume Balage and they're when you
Alex
see
Scott's awesome. Alex Scott is so good at what she does. I'm glad they're putting her in more roles here. She needs to be doing more. She's great.
When you have Kara and Alex Scott paired with Nico Cantor for the Golazo show, and they're just going back and forth. I thought that chemistry on that go-round was tremendous.
I like the second one, too, with Roberto Martinez. That was good, too, because Nico brought personality out of Roberto Martinez. Roberto Martinez brought, the seriousness and explaining everything. Carragher and Scott were having a blast and ripping on Nico, and Nico's ripping on them, and they're going back and forth. That show's fun because it can take on different personalities based off who's on it on the day. I don't know who's on it today, so I'll be waiting to see who's on it in the 3 or 4 o'clock time frame.
But yeah, so I will probably end up watching Golazo at 4 as opposed to any one of the individual games, just so I can get that all 6 at once and get the ingesting of all of it. But those are your numbers, and we'll go over the others tomorrow because we have another 8 tomorrow, 2 at 1:55, and 6. Get the 6-pack at 4.
A couple other things worldwide before we get back into the Twitters and the Twitch. Manchester United posted some financials. Their £23 million loss after tax is much smaller than some of the losses announced by other major European teams. Roma, £184 million loss for 2019-20. Milan, £176 million loss. Barcelona, £87 million loss. Juventus, £81 million loss. Real Madrid broke even. Benfica and Ajax made pretty good profits due to high player sales. Player sales are going to become a bigger aspect here in making these books balance because you're not going to have the game day revenue. So you're going to have to find some other way to make money. I think it's going to be player sales, but then it's going to be who can buy. The clubs who are selling can buy. So it starts to create its own market. We'll just see where it goes. Germany, I wanted to touch on this. I need to watch RB Leipzig a little bit closer because it was a good piece over at Reuters talking about how Julian Nagelsmann has had to adapt. We talk about being fluid. He's had to be fluid with his team. They've won 4. They've got a draw. They travel to Manchester United on Wednesday, so we'll talk a little bit deeper about it tomorrow as we preview that one. They've become more possession-based than they had been previously. You lose Timo Werner, you have to find it a different way. They have. They've still been dangerous going forward. 95 shots in 5 games in the Bundesliga, that's the most. 59% possession, that's third. Nagelsmann likens himself to a baker who mixes things, shoves them in the oven, and sees if it tastes good. I like that. Not my style of baking, but okay, that's fine.
I was going to say, it's like some folks bake that way.
But you have to be able to do that as a manager. He switched to 3 in the back. He's used wing backs. Angelino, on loan from Manchester City, has been outstanding. He's got 4 goals in all competitions. He's their leading scorer as a wing back. You've got to find different ways based off what you have. He's done that. So he's making a pretty good cake in Leipzig. And we'll see what they do against Manchester United. But I need to look at them. And Bernd has always mentioned it in the Twitch pitch about how Nagelsmann is not as rigid to the Red Bull system. He's opened it up more. And he's probably the main reason, that personality is probably why they identified him at Hoffenheim to come in and head their top team, because maybe they felt like under Ralph Rangnick it was getting a little stale because it was too rigid. Nagelsmann will adapt the counter-pressing style, like Klopp has at Liverpool, to what his team is now and what they have. You can't be a counter-pressing team if you're a top team as much, because you're going to have more of the ball. So you've got to be able to do more with it. You've got to find ways to make that work. So Leipzig will be an interesting watch tomorrow to watch how those tactics have adapted. Update on Spain and Barcelona. So the Catalonian government has rejected all the requests from Barcelona to suspend this vote of no confidence. They've told the club that, no, you can have more than one polling place for this. This is, it's a big membership vote. This is like over 100,000 people can vote in this thing. They're like, no, you can have it. You can do it safely. You're going to do this. Stop fighting it. Move on. The Catalan radio station RAC1 has said there's no health or legal impediment to the vote being held. It must be finalized. You have to move forward. So Bartomeu had his media availability yesterday, and he railed about all kinds of different things. He said he didn't want to talk bad about Messi, yada, yada, yada. He said that Barcelona doesn't get enough credit from the referees. He said that he had audio tapes of the AR and the referee saying that Sergio Ramos committed a foul before his shirt was pulled for the penalty. According to El Partidazo, which is a radio program on COPE, Barcelona will today submit a formal statement of complaint to the Spanish FA. They will attach videos of VAR reviews from different matches, not even just the Real Madrid match, the Betis match, the Getafe match, and they will ask the FA to hear the leaked audio of the linesman and the referee from the Madrid match. So you've got Bartomeu about to get voted out.
Uh-huh.
You've got reports saying that he will resign ahead of that vote. They've tried to push the vote. They're not going to be able to do it anymore. He will resign instead of getting voted out. But he's got things that he wants to handle first, and people wonder what those things could be. But they're also trying to distract you a little bit with all of this other stuff going on. And, yeah, it's good times, as always, in Barcelona right now. Some things out of England that are interesting. Raheem Sterling is setting up a foundation to help disadvantaged young people in Britain. Told the Sunday Times this. Going to donate a 7-figure sum to the cause. It's going to help families similar to those who are benefiting from Marcus Rashford's free school meals campaign. I don't think it's specifically tied to meals. I think it's a little broader, but setting up a foundation in his name to help disadvantaged young people, that is a very cool thing. And putting 7-figure sum to it, that is a huge impact. Huge impact. It's very cool to see players around the world in all sports realizing the power that they can have, and not just saying things but doing things. That's very cool to see for Raheem Sterling. At Manchester City, Jack Guagan of the Daily Mail is talking about the conversations between Pep Guardiola and the club about a new contract. Reportedly, City wants Guardiola to stay as long as he wants to stay. There's 8 months left on the deal. City are preparing just in case Guardiola wants to walk away, considering there's 8 months left on the deal, and he's been there for longer than he's been anywhere. He might say, that's it, I'm done. I think I would bet on that right now. I would think that is more likely than anything else. So, who have they identified as their favorites to become the successor? Maurizio Pochettino, I think, is an obvious one.
Yeah.
But Julian Nagelsmann from RB Leipzig. That would be fascinating. City has also had their worst start in 6 years. It's the worst start that Guardiola has ever had as a club manager. It is not good for Manchester City right now. I think they have kind of hit a wall for what they can be. I think Pep's hit a wall. I think the club's hit a wall. I think the squad's hit a wall. I think it's time to shake it up. They should move on at the end of the year. I really think that's the way to do it. So this season, Guardiola should put everything towards Champions League. They've got enough talent to qualify for Champions League out of the Premier League next year. They need to make sure they do that. Don't get too crazy. But they need to focus on the Champions League. If he can go out as a Champions League winner with that team, that would be the way to walk. That would be perfect for him. But yeah, I think it's time to move on. What do you think about Mike Ashley being the good guy right now?
I saw this face turn, and I'm like, seriously?
Well, as many have pointed out, it's not really much of a face turn. He came out yesterday and called for the Premier League to review the pay-per-view live matches in the UK. He voted in favor of it. It's £14.95 to watch individual fixtures. He says he voted for it because there were no realistic or viable alternatives put forward. He says charging that much in the current climate is not acceptable to any football fan.
Says the guy who's investing so much in his club.
That has nothing to do with it. Again, let's focus here and don't start throwing people under buses. He voted for it. Leicester City opposed it. They were the only ones to oppose it.
They're the only ones.
When it came out. And here's your numbers on what it's done. It's averaged 39,000 purchases over the first 9 games. 3 games got fewer than 10,000 viewers. None of them got more than 100,000. 2 were between 70 and 90,000. These are the games that are in that blackout window, which is stupid when you can't have anybody in the stands.
Yeah.
I think there's talk about bringing the price down to either £10 or £5.
That's what Ashley wanted over the holiday. Is he wanted it down to £4.95?
They should have done what they did before, and it should be on public television. They shouldn't have pay-per-view for these games. I understand the concept that they have on the blackout situation, and they didn't sell this package of games at this time. I get that, because you're trying to protect the lower divisions. That's a huge tradition. I understand it. Okay, that's fine. But nobody's in the building right now at any level. All these games should be available easily. Now, if you go the route of, okay, you paid for a ticket, and you can't use your ticket, you should be able to watch the game for free. No question. If you would have been a visiting fan and you did not pay for a ticket, but you could have paid for a ticket, you should be able to watch the game at a very low rate. That's kind of what Scotland's done, but they didn't have different rates, I don't think. They haven't really maximized that as a revenue source either. This 39,000 average, that's not a huge revenue source either. So it needs to be better. They've lost this PR battle so badly.
Mm-hmm.
And when Mike Ashley is the one saying this is a bad idea, yeah, you all look pretty bad. Fix this thing.
Yeah, because I think the goal was to match the attendance, the capacity of the stadium in the game that you would be watching. Like the home capacity is what the goal was, to try to get that number. Get that many people watching.
It's all stupid.
Yeah.
Also, as Alex Basine points out, Mike Ashley going off on the pay-per-view situation, but they are drawing from bank accounts for season ticket payments. They have not refunded anything for games missed. They have not communicated any plans to their season ticket holders. But then he wants to come out and talk about the pay-per-view situation. Maybe look at your own house there, buddy. Just saying. Yeah, Mike Ashley, the gift that keeps on giving.
Oh, God.
All right, let's get into this from Soccer America. The U.S. Men's National Team 23, a look at a possible squad for November. Bart was pretty excited about this, and Bart is our U.S. National Team correspondent at soccerdownhere.net. So I'd like to hear Bart's thoughts on what a roster could look like for the November games. We know there's one, and they're trying to find a opponent for the other. We know they're playing Wales on November 12th in Swansea. First time they played in 10 months. It will be I would assume, all European-based roster. There won't be MLS players. There won't be MLS players who are in the playoffs. I don't think that'll happen. Could they possibly bring in players from teams that don't make the playoffs? I guess. Maybe. I don't know if you need to. That's the unknown about putting together a roster, but we'll run through it quick, and you guys can share your thoughts on this on Twitter and on the Twitch pitch. Again, Soccer America, it's a pretty low subscription. They are the OG of American soccer media. I was buying Soccer America magazines when I could find them in 1990. I had the 1990 World Cup preview. Man, I wish I still had all those.
Yeah, see, growing up, I was a Soccer Digest guy.
Soccer Digest was not very good because it was like all the other digests. It was the little, like, TV guide-sized magazine. Soccer America was the good one. They've been around since the early 70s. They've went to an all-digital side. It's a cheap subscription. It's totally worth it. You have veterans who understand the American soccer landscape in a way that most of us don't. So Paul Kennedy went into this, and we'll run through what the roster looks like. Goalkeepers, he's got Zach Steffen, Ethan Horvath, yep, makes sense. Josh Cohen, who is a player you might not know very well. He started for Maccabi Haifa since moving there from Sacramento Republic. He has not been capped before. This would be a chance to bring him into camp. Take a look. Makes total sense. Outside backs, he's got Reggie Cannon, Serginho Dest, Anthony Robinson. All are obvious, selections for me. DeAndre Yedlin has not played for Newcastle. He's only dressed once. He's in the last year of his contract. I know there was talk about him moving. It didn't happen. So now he's not even dressing for games. That's not good. I don't know if you can bring him in right now because of that. Center backs, John Brooks, Matt Miazga, Eric Palmer Brown, Tim Ream, Chris Richards. Chris Richards has not been capped yet. Ream and Richards could play on the outside if you opt to only go with 3 outside backs. You've got a little bit of cover there. Brooks, Miazga, I don't think either one of those are a shock. Eric Palmer Brown is at Austria Vienna. Reams at Fulham. Richards, obviously, Bayern Munich. He could play on the right side if you wanted to. Palmer Brown was penciled to start in Olympic qualifying, so you're going to get another look at him for that. Richards could be a player for Olympic qualifying as well, even though he's much younger. That makes sense to me. Midfielders, and there's a couple really interesting ones here, and these are central midfielders. Tyler Adams, Weston McKennie, totally get it.
Yep.
Johnny, who is one who you probably don't know much about. He's with Internacional in Brazil. Berhalter was going to call him up in March before the friendlies were canceled with Wales and the Netherlands. He was starting for Internacional in Brazil, who's been at the top of the table in the Brasileiro. He was starting there before he got injured. He hasn't played since September 20th. So there's questions on if he's healthy enough to come in. If he can, they need to bring him in. Get him capped. Let's take a look at him. Let's see what's going on with him. Really interesting American playing in the Brasileiro that we just don't normally see. And yes, he goes by Johnny. That's his one name. Richie Ledesma is the other one who has not been capped. He was on the list here from Paul Kennedy. So Ledesma is at PSV. I hope he gets more time. We haven't seen a lot from him, but he's a very talented player. Other options, and Sebastian Lletget was mentioned if the Galaxy don't make the playoffs, maybe you bring him for a veteran presence. Other options, Julian Green, who Berhalter's never called up. Dwayne Holmes, he's been in and out of the lineup at Derby. Chris Durkin, who has been at Sint-Truiden from Belgium. They bought his contract from DC United. Alfredo Morales has not played since opening day. He has been injured at Fortuna Dusseldorf. Sergio Mendes is with the young Ajax team. Brian Cahill is with Wolfsburg 2. They're on second teams. Ledesma's on the second team at PSV. Frankie Amaya is another one who gets mentioned. I really like Frankie Amaya. I think he takes a lot of stick. I don't think he should. I'd like to see him with this group. I think he can elevate his game. Wingers. Uli Yanez from Heerenveen, Christian Pulisic, Tim Weah. A lot of questions about Tim Weah and where his playing time is going to come from at Lille, and Gio Reyna, who has not been capped yet, who is a starter at this point, in my opinion. Other options, Conrad De La Fuente from Barcelona. He's in the first team mix, but he's playing with Barcelona B at the moment. Emmanuel Sabi, who is in Denmark with OB. Tyler Boyd with Besiktas. He was not registered for the Turkish league at Besiktas. He has not found a new club, even on loan. I don't know what's happened with Tyler Boyd. He had kind of come out of nowhere to be a good fit for the U.S., and now he's not even playing, and I don't know what the solution is. Forwards. Josh Sargent is the not surprise. Aaron Johansson is on the outside looking in right now. He hasn't played for the U.S. in 5 years, but he's playing really, really well in Sweden. Uncapped players are on the list here in Haji Wright, who is playing in Denmark, Sebastian Soto, who has been talked about potentially going to the Chilean national team, and a player that I'm not familiar with, Nicolas Giacchini, who is with Caen in France. So Giacchini tested positive for COVID-19. He missed the game on Saturday. He's somebody that Berhalter wanted to bring in March. Haji Wright has been in Europe for 4 years. He was with the New York Cosmos at one point in the NASL. He's been in Europe for 4 years. He's been really good in Denmark. He's at the top of the scoring charts with the Superliga right now. So you want to, he's still young. He's a 1998 birthday. So that's what we're talking about right now with this group. Couple comments. Bart's surprised. No Carter Vickers. No Timmy Chandler. I get it with Chandler because I think you know what he is. If you want to look at some other guys, I would want to look at younger players right now. Bart says, not sure about Johnny making it to Europe. Brazil's not breaking for the window, and that's my understanding too. They could say no to the call-up. I think the injury might rule him out anyway. And Bart says, Johansson needs to be on every U.S. men's national team roster this World Cup cycle if he's healthy. I need to see more from Johansson first. It's a really small sample size. I mean, everybody loved him. Then he got hurt. Then he had a whole series of injuries. Now he's healthy again. He's done well. But I don't know if I'm not that high on him, Bart. Let's put it that way. I want to see a little bit more. I do want to see him with this group and see if he can be the right number 9 for a team that I would expect will have a midfield when everybody's healthy of Adams, McKinney, and Gio Reyna. We'll have Pulisic on one side. I don't know who the other winger is yet. What's going to be the right number 9 for that group? Is it Johansson? Is it Sargent? Is it Altidore if he can stay healthy long enough? Is it Jossie Zardes? Who is it? Because it's got to be the right one to fit with that group. That's where I'm at anyway. I think Johansson could be it. I'm just not convinced yet. If you can get a chance to bring him in and look at him, I mean, I don't know. I really like Sebastian Soto as well. I feel like he gets left out of this conversation a lot. I'm as high on Soto as I am on Sargent. And I know that's crazy talk. That's fine. I liked Soto in the U20 World Cup a lot. I want to see him playing. He's done well at Telstar so far. I want to continue to see him playing. I think he's got more upside than most of these. Now, I don't know Giacchini. I don't know his game. Haji Wright, he's playing well. You bring him back in. Johansson's playing well. You bring him back in. But Soto's the one I keep looking at as maybe the guy who breaks out of this group. We'll see. But Bart, if you want to write something about it, would love to read it. I'm sure people would love to read it. As this roster starts to come together, we will jump into it. Weah's lacking minutes, Kevsey says, is very disappointing. I totally agree. I don't know what the solution is. I just don't know where the time's going to come from for him.
No, for me, when the Aaron Johansson name popped up in the discussion, I'm like, I haven't seen him out and around consistently for a long time. I'd like to see where he is right now, just because he's been off the radar for so long.
Yeah, I mean, he's playing well at the club level. Absolutely bring him in. But I don't know if he's not my starter yet. I've got to see more from him before we get to that point.
Yeah, so that was when going through all that discussion for me, that was the biggest one. The biggest one that I had a thought of was Aaron Johansson. But I like that list of names, and I'm looking forward to seeing this group whenever it comes into its final healthiest form. I want to see it just because of all the promise that's been associated with it, all the anticipation that's there, all these different names. You mentioned Soto as a part of it too, and Gianni was a name that I've never had on my radar for anything. And that's another reason that I'm looking forward to seeing this group is the new faces, the guys that aren't a part of your radar that hop into this as well.
I'm 100% going to vote for, if he is going by Johnny at Internacional and in the Brazilian League, he needs to go by Johnny with the U.S. national team. Let's do it. Not Johnny Cardoso. He's Johnny. If he's Johnny, he's Johnny.
Yep.
I think he should be Johnny. It should be on the back of the shirt.
Exactly.
All in on this.
All in on Johnny. Yeah, don't mess with it. If that's who he is, that's who he is. Don't play with it. It's just you don't force a last name on somebody just because if this is how you're known, it's how you're known.
I mean, it is his last name, but if he's going to go professionally by Johnny, he's going to go professionally by Johnny.
Yes,
that's where
right
I'm
there
at.
with you.
Okay, what do we have on the Twitters?
We're caught up on the Twitters, sir.
Where's the Twitters?
Yeah, really? I think the Twitters went to the Twitch this morning. I think that's
that's happening a lot, and that's completely cool. A lot of people on the Twitch pitch mentioned Bart's comments on this U.S. team. Soccer for Good OG, back in Soccer America, been a subscriber since the 80s. Undisputed source since forever, totally agree. Clay Burling, who was a board member for Soccer in the Streets, had the opportunity to meet Clay. Legend in American soccer. Absolute legend in American soccer. He helped get the magazine started, passed away a few years ago. Clay gave so much to a time when you didn't have blogs and Twitter and message boards and anything. It was, I'm waiting on my edition of Soccer America to know what's going on with all of these random leagues before MLS starts and trying to figure out what these teams are and who the next player is. I mean, talking about a guy playing in Brazil, like, man, when you were trying to find out what the national team would look like between 1990 and 94, good grief. You're finding, because that was when you started to see like your Ernie Stewarts, your Thomas Dooleys. That's when it's like any player who has an American sounding name in Germany. All right, what's the connection? All right, can we get them naturalized? Can we get them in? All right, how do we do this? It was crazy, and Soccer America covered all of it. They were the best, and they still are the best. They do great work still.
You got me hooked into the yearly subscription for Soccer America.
Yeah, they are the best. And I mean, they're still like, that's what's so impressive is they're still like putting out great work. They have a lot of different columnists who dig into different things. They cover the youth game. If you're looking for things on the big picture with U.S. youth soccer, they've got that as well. Referees, coaching development. Some of their interviews are great. Their confidential series is really good too. So highly recommended. Subscribe if you can. Other things on the Twitch pitch. Clayton Paw says the Twitch pitch is the future. In all caps.
It's the present.
It is the present and the future. It's all of it.
Yeah. Oh, Tafka says he thought Soto had come out and said he was going to switch to Chile or accept an invite to play, etc. Is that not the case?
I think that was disputed. We'll see. I mean, Chile would be calling him up for a World Cup qualifier. I don't know if they're going to do that. So if you get the chance, you call him in and you talk to him and you say, we really like you, sir. And you don't let him go to Chile if you can help it. I don't know if they'll call him up for a qualifier. That'd be a bold move. I think he's a talented enough player. I really do. I think he could be better than Sargent. I want to see if he becomes the breakout star of that group. All right, we've got fantasy to get into, as Ricky Ricardo reminds us. We've got two games.
We have 2 games tonight.
2 games tonight, 7 o'clock, Montreal and Nashville, 10 o'clock, Vancouver and Seattle. What are the juice box numbers on those 2 games before we jump in?
Montreal at home but not at home is
right.
a plus 184. Nashville is a plus 150. Your draw is a plus 230.
Draw.
Vancouver is home, but they're not at home against Seattle. Vancouver a plus 469. Seattle a minus 189. Your draw a plus 353.
Don't touch it. I don't trust Vancouver. I just can't. Can't do it.
So those are your 2 numbers, and we've got 3, 6, 9, 11 matches tomorrow.
All right, I got my team set here. We've got in goal Joe Willis.
Okay.
And who do you have?
I thought you were going to go through your whole thing while I dialed my lineup up here.
No, I'm not. I'm going to wait on you.
Okay. And I'm in the process of having it load, so I can tell you what's going on.
Is Netscape really working fast here? I mean, come on.
I've got Tim Melia.
Ricky's got Joe Willis in that. Cool.
For the game against Cincinnati, basically.
Yeah, I've got Joe Willis in for tonight because I could see it being a scoreless draw. Or I could see Nashville winning with a clean sheet. They play Chicago as well in this one, so I like Joe Willis's chances. Back line, continuing on the Nashville theme, I got Walker Zimmerman, I've got Brooks Lennon, and I've got Leandro Gonzalez-Perez.
Okay, I've got Lennon and I've got Zimmerman. I also have Miles and Abubakar Keita.
So you're playing 4 in the back, which is still strange to me. I just don't get it. Midfield, I got Lodero, Memo Rodriguez, Diego Valeri, and Christian Espinoza.
All right, so my midfield is a captained Lodero, Pozuelo, Pedro Santos, Latif Blessing, Caden Clark.
I thought about Caden Clark. I wasn't able to make it work. I went in a different direction, but I thought about it. Up top, I've got Alan Pulido, Jossie Zardes, and Daryl Dike.
I have Zardes up top in my 4-5-1.
You're 4-5-1. It's working, so I can't really say anything about it.
And my bench, in case things fall apart, are Brisson from Dallas, who has helped out at the back, Danny Masovsky from LA, who has helped out, and Wando, who I'm now going to change because he is a yellow card. He's a yellow dot, so I'm going to need another replacement there.
Yeah, I'm going to have to work on my bench. I got guys who are injured there, and I'd like to have people who might factor in. Ricky's lineup, Joe Willis in net, Justin Glad, Dave Romney, Tuiloma from Portland, Montero, Valeri, Pozuelo, Aronson, so he's keeping the Valeri-Pozuelo pairing that is very expensive. And then Zardes, Morris, and Vela. And he's captained Vela. I've captained Valeri. They're playing the Galaxy, so I'm going to stick with that.
Yeah.
I'm going to stick with that.
I've had Lodero captained, and he's got Vancouver and Colorado this week.
Yeah, that's what I could go Lodero, but I'm going to go Valeri against the Galaxy. I think Valeri will find points there.
Yeah. And so let's see. Oh, I guess I need to save my changes before leaving the page, which would help.
So Kefsey had 2 questions. Jonathan Osorio, injury. Let's see. He was out on the weekend. I wanted to see if they talked about it yet. And I don't see an update. I wouldn't expect him to be back for Wednesday. He could be back for the weekend. He had a back issue the game before they played Atlanta. And then it flared up and he wasn't even able to finish the game. So I would stay away from Osorio. Gianluca Busio was the other question that Kefsey had. And let's see if there's any updates on him. He came off, is that correct, in the game on the weekend in the 70th minute?
Efforting.
Yeah, he did. He came off in the 70th minute. I don't see anything about any concerns about him missing this week, so maybe keep an eye on Busio, but Osorio I'd stay away from. Yes, Kefsey, it would be helpful if updates were part of the interface. Absolutely.
Yeah, really? Let's see. In the league, in the Open League, Skylar Redpath is far and away your number 1. And he has a 57-point lead on the other Doug Robertson. Check Joseph is at number 3. Joseph Martinez uses the Oxford comma, is at 4. Don't var me, bro. Camdo Attitude, Aeon Aurum, Goldmine FC, Legend Strike Gold, and Dunder Mifflin B Team are your top 10.
Well, you're 12. I can't get into the top 20. I mean, I had another good week. I finished 18 for the week. I just can't get out of the 24 is where I keep getting stuck. I can't get into the top 20. These first 2 weeks killed me.
Yeah, they did. They absolutely killed you. And in the Pro Rel League, let's see. I have a 1-game lead on 4 teams: Port City, Check Yourself, Black Star, and we all need some thing that carried more than characters that are legible. So more characters than you could read, but I've got a 1-game lead on 4 teams.
Ricky's 11th in the Open League. Show some respect.
Okay.
But also, Skylar Redpath is the MLS fantasy guy.
Oh, he is?
Yeah.
And so the MLS fantasy guy is in our league.
Yeah, with a Nashville avatar beating everybody.
I saw that.
That's not good. It's not good. But it is that. And
so I picked up Kyrie Shelton to take the place of Wondolowski on the bench.
Ricky is telling you that's his team. I guess what you were rambling about.
Well, the one that has the more names and the more characters than the names shows you. And I tried to click on the roster, and it wouldn't even give me the expanded team name either.
We all need somebody to lean on.
Thank you. Thank you, Rick.
And Alex Basine says, who is this Oxford comma person, and why aren't we best friends yet? That is one of my favorite team names. I don't know whose team that is.
Let's see. Yeah, it's Hansa, whoever Hansa is. So, Hansa, if you're either on the Twitter or on the Twitch or listening to us, let us know who Hansa is.
Yes, por favor. All right. What else is on your agenda for today?
After this show is done, go in and turn into the other me temporarily, or one of the other me's temporarily. Go and record the Football Fridays in Georgia podcast. This week's guest is Jason Strickland, the head coach at Ware County, after their big win over Coffee. And then I have to call a head coach to be determined for my weekly column and write that, and then come back and keep trying to finish the book.
What book? I don't know if you've told everybody about your book.
It is the book number 6, and it has to do with Buddy Nobles from Irwin County. For those that don't know, Buddy, about a year and a half ago, came back from a cruise, was diagnosed with stage 4 inoperable stomach cancer, and it coached the 2019 football season for his single A team down there in Irwin County to a state championship after getting to the game and losing, I think, 3 or 4. The joke was that Irwin County was turning into the Buffalo Bills of Georgia high school football. And so just about perseverance. And he's a great friend to me, and love Patty, and I love that family very much. And it just was a story that needs to be told about lessons in perseverance and those kinds of things. And so I'm one chapter away from finishing that, and then it goes to the publisher and hopefully out by Christmas. And, the Saved by the Bell reboot trailer is up.
Yeah, I saw that. I'm excited to click on that one after we're done.
So I'm going to take a look at that too. But you got the high school football me, the author me, the SDH me, and so we're all melded together this time of year.
Well, Ricky has a question for the high school football you. What's this deal with the Grayson quarterback and the Valdosta situation in California and all this madness?
Okay, Jake Garcia. Apparently, his transfer to Valdosta, the paperwork was not filed properly, and because of that,
Valdosta from where? From California?
From a high school in California, because the CIF is not playing their fall football season. So
he moved to Valdosta?
Yeah, so Jake wanted to find a place to play that suited his style as a passing quarterback.
Okay.
So he and his family decided that they were going to play in Valdosta for Rush Probst. So, yes. And so apparently they did not file their paperwork for the transfer properly. And so the GHSA said that Jake Garcia was ineligible. And because they filed their paperwork improperly and figured out what they did wrong in filing their paperwork with Grayson, that transfer is okay, and that's why he's eligible for Grayson for the rest of this senior season. And I just think that it really is. Right now he's scheduled to go to Southern Cal, but until signing day, I think that this is an audition for him for East Coast schools east of the Mississippi.
Okay.
But that's basically it.
So Ricky says his parents legally separated so he could transfer?
Yeah, that had to be part of the deal. But the thing is,
how is that part of a deal?
No, that's part of that's what you have to do. Is if you're leaving a state, part of the bylaws say that your parents, if one parent is only coming, you have to. And his dad was the one who was coming with him. His dad and his mom had to say, since they weren't together for the move, that they were legally separating. But in an article of Mark Slaybaugh at ESPN, it wasn't directly attributed in a quote, but Slaybaugh in his written copy said that the parents admitted that they were getting back together after this football season.
So let me try to wrap this up, because this sounds like it would be a ridiculous telenovela.
It is
So
already.
they're not playing high school football in California.
Correct.
Kid wants to play. He
Correct.
says, I'm going to go play, and I'm going to go play for Rush Probst, because, you just randomly picked him out of a hat, I'm sure.
Right.
Anyway, and we'll leave that one alone. That's a separate telenovela.
So
you go to Valdosta. You didn't file the paperwork properly.
Correct.
But the parents had to legally separate for him to come to Valdosta anyway.
Yes.
Okay. So he comes to Valdosta. You don't do the paperwork properly. Either he didn't, or Valdosta didn't, or Rush Probst didn't, or somebody didn't. So then you can't go to Valdosta, but you can go to Grayson?
Because the transfer basically was an untransfer.
So now you did the right paperwork.
Uh-huh.
You never existed in Valdosta.
Correct. You were an unperson.
Did he go to any virtual classes in Valdosta, or does that even matter?
No, he went to.
Or did they have real classes?
Because he actually played.
Oh, he played, but he didn't play. But he played.
Yes, and they had to forfeit those games because he was ineligible.
So he did play. He was ineligible. They forfeited because they didn't do paperwork properly. Now he goes to Grayson and he can play.
Yes.
Okay. How did that happen? Because he didn't actually play, but he did play.
Right.
But he didn't play, so he can play over here, because you can't transfer in the middle of the season, right?
Correct.
But he didn't transfer, but he played, but he didn't play.
Actually, you can transfer in the middle of a season, because Carlos Del Rio Wilson transferred from whatever school he was at. He was at Grayson, was declared ineligible, and so he transferred to Cartersville.
Okay, so that's the one who got bumped.
Yeah. Because he was registered as ineligible by the GHSA.
Oh, so he was ineligible.
Yeah.
How was he ineligible?
I think he filed his proper paperwork improperly.
Where did he come from?
He was at McEachern.
Okay.
So he was at McEachern, was transferring to Grayson, was declared ineligible, and so then he transferred to a place where he could be eligible, and that was Cartersville. So he's quarterbacking at Cartersville now. He was supposed to be the quarterback at Grayson.
But wait a minute. Did he quarterback at Grayson? Did he play?
No, he did not.
Okay, so they don't have to forfeit anything.
No, they don't.
Okay. Bart is questioning Grayson's integrity, which I don't know. I don't know if that's true.
He would not be the only one, Bart.
That's what I thought. I thought that was a common thing. Wow, this needs to be done in a TV show. It's better than Two-A-Days that MTV had back in the day with our buddy Rush Probst.
Yeah.
It's better than that.
I mean, honestly, I'm to the point with this particular rule with transfers. It's like, look, if you don't live in the district, pay a usage fee, go to a school that you want to go to, and if you want to go to a school outside of your district, pay a fee, play wherever. Because this is you're just flouting the rules at this point that are already in place.
That's wild. Back in my day, it was only the private schools that recruited people. Now the public schools are recruiting people.
Yeah, now the public
from California.
Well, considering that Grayson is ranked top 10 nationally, yes.
No, I get it. It was just like I said, it was the private schools that were the ones recruiting before, and now everybody's recruiting.
Everybody's recruiting.
Mm-hmm. High stakes, high school football.
Because, as you well know, the four seasons in this part of the world are not summer, fall, winter, and spring. It is football, spring football, Cruton, and National Signing Day.
Yeah, something like that. Absurdity. So you have fun explaining all that.
No.
Yeah, no, have fun with it. It'll be lots of fun. Try to explain that one to everybody. And
I
write
have for the last few months.
You want to write a book? That's something to write a book on, or write a treatment for a Amazon Prime series.
There you go.
That'd be the next Saved by the Bell.
Transfers are us. Are you watching Saved by the Bell?
No, I said that would be the next one. You bring in the quarterback to Bayside who transferred from somewhere else, and his parents had to legally separate to be able to transfer, and all this madness.
Then you have the teen angst of the separation and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Oh, good times. Totally. All the fun. All right, that's going to do it for us today. We got the run-up tonight at 7. We'll get deep into Atlanta and Orlando. You have questions. You have questions about tactics. You have questions about personnel. For that match specifically, you fire them off to us at Soccer Down Here, and we will work on those for the show. 7 o'clock, you can watch on Twitch. You can listen on the Soccer Down Here app. You can listen on soccerdownhere.net. We will leave you with this. It was on this day in 1968 that the last time a World Cup qualifier was played in Atlanta happened. It was at Atlanta Stadium at that time. It wasn't Atlanta Fulton County Stadium at that point. There were 3,696 fans there, and the United States beat Canada 1-0 in World Cup qualifying for the 1970 World Cup. Dietrich Albrecht scored the goal for the United States in the second half, and Phil Woosnam, who had coached the Atlanta Chiefs to the NASL title about a month prior, was the coach of the team, and he would have stayed the coach of the team through the rest of qualifying, but then he became the NASL commissioner for the next year and had to leave the national team program. They had hired him because, I don't know, it's probably part-time, and he was getting paid in Atlanta, so they figured they could work that out, and yeah. Last qualifier played here in 1968. There has not been one since. The men's national team has only played in Atlanta twice since that. They played in 1978, I think, 77 or 78 against China at Atlanta Fulton County Stadium, and then the Gold Cup semifinal against Jamaica, which didn't go well. That's it.
No.
The women have played here quite a few times. That's it for the men. 68, late 70s, and 2015. That's all. Wow. That's crazy. Wow. That should be happening more.
No.
All right. That'll do it. We'll be back at 7 for the run-up. We'll be back tomorrow morning for a very busy match day Wall Pass Wednesday. Y'all have a good rest of the day. Enjoy the Champions League. Mucha plata, y'all.
Mucha plata, y'all.